They were fascinated by the dungeon, carefully examining the area, sticking together so as not to get lost. The guy smelled some kind of rotten smell in the room. Turning to his friend Lucy, he informed her that the premises should be safe and suggested that she take a look around while they had time. The partner gave a positive answer. The partners decided to stop to explore the area they were in. The guy wasn't particularly worried and was peacefully looking at the objects. But something suddenly went wrong for Michael, and this could be seen from his facial expression, which changed in the blink of an eye. The guy clearly felt uneasy after he learned that there were living corpses buried in the dungeon they were in. The guy didn't have time to really think and assess the situation before his partner called him. As it turned out, the girl discovered an ancient treasure in the ruins and screamed with incredible delight, calling the guy. Looking at the zombie coffins, the guy wanted to run away more and more quickly. Well, there's nothing they can do now. I'll have to face them face to face. Having finally made up his mind, Michael firmly and insistently informed the girl that they needed to escape as quickly as possible. Lucy, not really understanding what was happening to her partner, stood in bewilderment. It was unclear to her what could have caused such determination in his eyes. The rather strong and sharp breaking frightened the bats that lived here. But the guy did not lose his head and urged his partner to run away from this place faster. Through the noise and dust, zombies began to emerge from their coffins, heading towards the travelers. Michael and Lucy stood with their backs to each other to protect themselves if anything happened. But they didn't have a plan, which is why the girl turned to the guy to find out what they were going to do now. Realizing that he couldn't escape, the boy tried to come up with a plan to avoid imminent death. But the horde of zombies was creeping closer and closer, not giving them time to come up with anything useful. 2 days ago, before the zombie incident in the cave. The guy's name is Michael. He was left an orphan 3 years ago, and thanks to cash benefits and assistance from the government, he has somehow managed to survive until today. It's the last week of senior year, and tomorrow the protagonist can finally gain the qualification to explore the dungeons from the inside. If he passes the exam successfully, he will no longer have to worry about his future life and will become a dungeon explorer, which is his only possible choice. While he was busy with his routine work, which he did in the evenings, he noticed that there was a very bright star shining in front of him. Well, as it turned out, it was clearly not a simple star because this radiance suddenly approached the guy, as if magically it took the form of strange figures, coming to life and emitting a mysterious glow. An incomprehensible text immediately appeared near the guy, consisting of strange signs and symbols engraved on an ancient wall. It was written somewhere that he was the presenter 10 years ago. Until now, the guy was perplexed by what had happened to him that evening. It was difficult for him to comprehend everything that was happening around him. It was like a strange dream from which it was impossible to wake up. When Michael was in a certain room, they shouted at him to move away from the machine. But it was as if he was not in this world at all. And this is not strange, because they continued to shout at the guy, and a line had already formed behind him. It turned out that the person yelling at him was an elderly man with gray hair, and from his appearance it was clear that he was furious. This blue sign, which in his head he called bad, was the new registrar, in front of which the guy was standing. The man was already at the peak of his rage. He angrily asked the boy if he finally wanted to become a dungeon explorer. Michael told his teacher that he simply hadn't slept well that night and was a little distracted. The guy was given his ID and was firmly told that he should not lose this document under any circumstances. It was clear from his expression that he was happy that he finally had this certificate. And in addition, they told him not to forget to take it to the Yellow Hall of Hidden Treasures to receive a free artifact. 3 years later, he finally ends up in the dungeon, and as Michael was leaving, the man told him that if he continued not to sleep at night, sooner or later he would go bald. The guy hadn't been to the Yellow Room for a very long time. The halls are divided into 4 sectors: heavenly, earthly, secret, and yellow. Yellow is the lowest in terms of sect level and contains many low-level artifacts, but that's enough for the guy. Approaching one of the shelves, he noticed that there were a lot of interesting things on it. The boy couldn't understand why this object was causing spiritual energy to disappear, and why the teacher hadn't said anything about it back then. He also couldn't understand why this text was appearing everywhere. It couldn't be that someone was looking at it. Perhaps all this information will be useful to him, but he still pretends as if he sees nothing. Michael picked up the King Kong flower and felt the warmth and energy that slowed time as his hand slid along the stem. And our hero, not understanding whether this is really happening to him, decides to test the King Kong flower with a piece of paper. After conducting a small experiment, he realized that this umbrella was what he needed. Lucy asked the guy if he had ever been to the treasure room, but the guy stuttered, looking away and showing the things on his back. But she began to get indignant because she said that she had a lot of things at home that she could lend him, and she sincerely did not understand how this King Kong flower could help him. It seems he is beginning to understand that the ticker tape after the bright star that night is telling the truth, since those who do not know do not understand the usefulness of the King Kong flower. The teacher asked the students for a minute of attention. He announced that tomorrow they would go to the dungeon to take the exam, and asked everyone present about their registration. After the teacher's question, the room erupted in laughter and a buzz of responses, most of which were positive confirmations. The man explained to them that they needed to split into groups of 2 people, and that they should not forget that they should look for a suitable person based on the treasures they had taken. For example, a person with an attacking treasure, paired with a preserving one, will not need to worry about themselves and their partner, because you have collected the necessary set of items. Michael immediately glanced at the girl sitting in front of him. After the teacher announced that they should start dividing into groups, Lucy immediately turned and looked at our hero. The girl immediately suggested that the guy create a group, and it was obvious that she wanted to support him and help him uncover the secrets of the treasure hall. He was of the opinion that Lucy was good, but the subject she chose based on the blue writing's hints was weak, after which he told her that she was in the wrong place, and from her reaction it was clear that she did not expect such an answer. She stood up and started yelling at the guy. The whole class could hear how the girl asked him if she was some kind of ugly girl and wondered why he always avoided her. At this time, other girls in the class were discussing the fact that no one can count how many admirers Lucy has, so it is strange to hear that someone considers her not beautiful enough. As it turned out, the girl is the daughter of the most influential and rich man. The guy is just a poor student orphan. If not for the fact that 3 years ago he saved her, they would never have crossed paths. After some time, the girl grabbed the guy by the hand, which attracted a lot of attention to her. She was optimistic that if he did not want to become a lady's partner, then the lady herself would take the initiative. It suddenly turned out that the exams would take place this evening in the same treasure hall. To ensure their safety, they cleaned the exam rooms in advance. They were told that their task was to obtain 2 artifacts in order to pass the exam. A man with a loudspeaker asked the students to choose the dungeon they wanted and wait for the exam to begin. Just by looking through the gates of the dungeon, one can understand that all this is beyond the means of even the most wealthy officials and businessmen, and perhaps the most expensive and first-class artifacts will be there. An unknown number of years ago, a dungeon called the Beginning appeared in the world. It remained a mystery to researchers and historians, causing a mysterious excitement and interest in its origins. The emergence of the Beginning brought colossal disasters to humanity. One day, the world was faced with an inexplicable, catastrophic flow of power, an eruption of terrible creatures, and destruction that engulfed large areas of the planet. Immediately after this, dungeons of various sizes appeared in different places. Demons and monsters from there broke the seal between the worlds and began to harm humanity. To achieve safety in the world, someone had to challenge the dungeon excavations using the treasures of the dungeon itself. This is how dungeon and tomb explorers emerged. To cultivate as many dungeon explorers as possible, the state issued a decree providing free support to special individuals up to 99 years of age. All they had to do was complete training and pass an exam. The girl scratched the guy and insisted that he not slow down, but go forward. As it turned out, the girl's father, for the safety of his daughter, ordered his people to completely eliminate the dangers in these dungeons. Michael did not respond to Lucy's words, which caused her to become angry inside. Feeling helpless and irritated, she could not contain her emotions and flared up in rage, and he just walked on without saying a word. For some reason, when the guy told the girl that it was time for him to go, she was very frightened and surprised. Lucy started complaining to Michael that the other dungeon was much better than this one, because it was very dark here, and she couldn't understand why they came here at all, and she was sure that they wouldn't find anything here, and would also get into trouble. The guy continued to walk forward silently, as if absorbed in his thoughts and decisions, not paying attention to what was happening around him. Michael realized he couldn't control these ticker tape prompts because so much time had passed since they first appeared. The partners resolutely looked into one of the rooms, hoping to find something useful for their task. It looked like a big tomb. At least there were 7-8 coffins here. After Lucy saw the coffins in front of her, she began to beg Michael even more for them to return back. Despite his words that these places had long been cleared of the dead, his words sounded serious, but there was doubt in her eyes. She asked him a question, eager to know if he was telling the truth. But Michael grinned and asked when he had deceived her. But to be honest, he himself didn't really believe it. After 10 minutes, the teachers noticed that someone had disturbed the zombies' peace. As expected, the group that disturbed the zombies' peace was a group that included Lucy and Michael. But the teachers said that there was nothing to worry about, since there were only 2 dead people there. As it turned out, there were not 2 dead people here, but 5 who began to surround our heroes. The girl was in a panic and couldn't understand what to do, because she told them to go to another tomb. Lucy begged Michael not to even think about fighting these dead people alone. The guy decided to take a risk to get a reward and opened the King Kong flower. At this time, with every second, the merciless zombies were getting closer and closer. After the guy put the umbrella on the ground, it somehow increased in size hundreds of times, and all the dead people under it froze. The flower's effect does not spread to the user, so they have 8 seconds to escape. There was very little time left, and they had to act quickly to avoid a collision with the revived zombies. Michael said that time had passed and clapped. Immediately after the mysterious clap, the artifact that Lucy took for herself dealt with all the zombies, piercing them with small spears. Our hero, full of determination, decided to check whether all the zombies were really dead. Michael realized that suddenly all the zombies were dead. He couldn't believe his eyes, because just now they were in great danger. After the text flashed before the guy's eyes, about how he was worthless because he was scared of such weak zombies, he got a little angry and told them that it was easy to judge. At this time, the partner was completely perplexed, trying to understand how Michael was able to come to such a decision and act so decisively in a situation that seemed hopeless. The partner thought for a moment and realized that it was probably not in vain that she had decided to take this mysterious artifact with her. It turned out to be a real salvation in a difficult situation, and in a few moments everything changed. And only after this situation did the girl admit the fact that his artifact was not as simple as it seemed at first glance, and she became interested in where he got such a cool thing. Michael said that he would tell her later, because if he told her that he saw the lines that led him to the King Kong flower, she would think he was crazy. Entering another room, the partners were confident that it was safe there. The artifacts mentioned by the school should be 2 oil lamps that stand directly in front of the eyes. Michael, studying the artifact's settings, came to the conclusion that there might be something valuable and important inside these mysterious slabs. They decided to open these slabs in the hope of finding something important. After some time, a bright red light began to come from the slabs, which indicated that they had better leave immediately. After this whole chain of events, Michael is now absolutely sure that these comments are from people from the future. They decided that there were too many mysteries and dangers around, and quickly left the room, fearing that solving the riddle could lead to even greater difficulties. The teacher reported that the boy and girl found 2 artifacts and killed 3 zombies, for a total of 76 points. The exam was passed. The other group found only 1 artifact and killed 2 zombies. This group did not pass the exam. Since it was almost dawn, the teacher asked who had not yet returned, to which he heard the answer that only Michael and Lucy had returned. Since the gates were closed, they could not leave the premises. The girl could not understand what to do now. In total, you need to get 2 artifacts. Each one is worth 35 points. If you find 2 artifacts, you will pass the exam. But the more zombies you kill, the more points you get. Michael, thinking that he could get points for the artifacts from the dungeon, set himself the goal of taking everything. The guy turned to the girl and asked her to give him some kind of brush, which was needed to perform further actions. The guy wanted to use this brush to paint a way out. Maybe with its help they would be able to create a path to freedom and leave this place. He succeeded in doing it successfully the first time. Michael asked Lucy to go outside through this drawing first. The girl insisted that the guy hurry, reminding him that the drawing would disappear over time. Michael, seemingly ignoring his partner's requests, remained fixated on only one thought. The drawing will disappear and the guy won't be able to get out. The brush can only be used again after 10 minutes, and they don't have time for that. He asked her, as soon as she got out, to find the teachers, and at that time he would take the oil lamp that was left near the tomb. The guy asked them not to worry, because now they would definitely pass the exam. During class, the teacher explained how to destroy a bloody corpse, warning his students of danger and sharing valuable knowledge about how to act in extreme situations. He said that unlike the body of an ordinary corpse, the bloody one is much harder, but he didn't say anything about the head. Based on the teacher's training, it seems that the weak point for destroying bloody corpses may be their head. After these lines told him that this dead man had suffered from bloating for 1,000 years, which was why he was passing such powerful gas, the guy could not believe that he had trusted these people. Oddly enough, the bloody corpse managed to get out. The situation became even more dangerous. Michael will have to fight with it again in order to leave it behind. When the girl ran out into the street, they immediately started asking her why she was alone and where her partner was. Through tears, she reported that they had come across a bloody corpse. The guy helped her get out of there, and he himself remained in the dungeon to pick up the artifacts. Everyone couldn't understand where the bloody corpses could come from, because before the exam, the dungeon had been thoroughly checked. There were only a few ordinary zombie corpses, but there was clearly no bloody corpse there. Michael noticed that this bloody corpse was not so simple, and its skin had an unusual shade of blood red. Upon closer inspection, the protagonist noticed not only blood-red skin, but also white hair, and blood-red eyes gave this creature an even more gloomy and terrible appearance. Michael noticed an imprinted pattern on the head of the bloody corpse, and thought that it might be its weak spot. There was little time to think. As the bloody corpse suddenly pounced on the boy, Michael had to act instantly to protect himself from this attack. The guy thought through all the possible options for how to defend himself. The protagonist suddenly remembered the umbrella and quickly threw it into the air. Something incredible happened. Time stopped, and the bloody corpse froze in its attack. With time suspended, Michael prepared to deliver the final blow to his bloody adversary, hoping that his actions would be successful. Our hero gathered all his internal resources and strength to deliver this blow, with the hope that this would finally defeat this terrible enemy. Focusing all his strength, Michael delivered a devastating blow precisely to the mark on the head of the bloody corpse. The force of this blow was enough to finally defeat the horror. And now it has become a proven fact that the weak point of the bloody corpse is the imprinted pattern on its forehead. And at this time, all the people ran as fast as they could to help the guy. They had this plan. As soon as they open the door, the teacher will take him out. But first he had to put on the golden silk armor and stand in front. Then they will start the invasion. The teacher started the countdown to rescue Michael. Before he could count to 3, the door suddenly opened and a guy stood in front of them, and behind him lay a red corpse. The teachers immediately started asking if everything was okay, to which they received the answer that everything was okay with him, but not with that guy, pointing to the corpse. They were all perplexed, because they understood that if a man miraculously survived after a collision with a bloody corpse, then it was possible to somehow kill him. They were not sure of that. The teacher suggested leaving the dungeon and getting answers to all the questions later. The guy told the man that in addition to the 2 lamps, he managed to find a real artifact, a hairpin, but he used it when he killed the bloody corpse. Then Michael asked if this would improve his grade. The teacher became furious. The guy killed the bloody corpse with his own hands and was still worried about his grade. One of the men suggested talking outside. He asked the teacher if this guy was really so good that he could kill such a monster on his own, and the teacher joked a little and said it was all because he was his teacher. Meanwhile, the dejected girls and their partners were discussing how Lucy's team had stumbled upon a bloody corpse. It's scary that he'll die. Well, let it be scary, since when is finding a dead body in the dungeons not normal? The girl couldn't understand how the guy could say such a thing, since they were also students, but he argued that it was just a fact, nothing special. The guy confidently walked out of the dungeon. It is clear that no one could believe that he could actually survive. If they had also found out that he could win, then they would have fallen on the spot. The girl immediately began to take offense at the guy. She thought she would never see him again and hugged him tightly with tears in her eyes. The teacher asked the boy to tell how he managed to kill the bloody corpse. After hearing the story, everyone present had very surprised looks on their faces. But one group of people could not believe that he neutralized the enemy with the help of a flower, and then the title with a hairpin. The man said that it was enough, since they had spent the whole night in the dungeons. Everyone was tired, and they needed to go and rest, since they had to get up early tomorrow. After that, the girl told them to go, but the guy asked her to wait. He approached the teacher and asked how many points they got in total. The man said that they would talk about the assessment a little later, when he returned to the academic building, and asked him not to worry, because they were the best. Who would have thought that thanks to these blue lines, the guy would be able to pass the exam, but since these lines are messages from the future that no one sees, it means that no one can guess with whose help he did all this, and these people should never appear here. However, it cannot be ruled out that there may be false text there. All information will need to be verified. The man reported that immediately after the results were announced, the school announced that there would be no classes in the afternoon, a 3-day break was announced, and that they would have to return to their teachers immediately after the break to pick up their results. The guy stood there and didn't know how to get home, but at that moment a man in a car asked if he needed a ride. A smile crossed Michael's face and he asked if the driver would give a student a discount. Having arrived home, he immediately sat down on the bed because he was very tired. But he still couldn't understand where this ancient book that he was holding in his hands came from in the coffin of a bloody corpse. He read it, and it didn't make it any clearer to him. The boy noticed that there were no records, and no one had investigated it yet. It seems he will have to turn to someone who is knowledgeable about this. The 30 brightness that he had to spend so much time and effort on turned out to be an ordinary ancient book that no one had yet examined. But after some time, when the guy had already calmed down, he decided that he would not jump to conclusions. He needed to carefully study this book first. First, he needs to find out what is written on the cover. It seems the only way to try to practice is to go down into the dungeon. At this time, there was a girl in the dungeon who was approaching the very place where the bloody corpse lay. She walked up to him and slowly descended. No one reported to the director about that very bloody corpse that the student killed alone. The director told me to contact this guy and find out if he wanted to join them. The guy woke up from a knock on the door so early, he was clearly not happy about it. Michael couldn't understand who was knocking so early. As it turned out, it wasn't that early, 6 o'clock in the evening. The girl in front introduced herself. It turned out she was a member of a special unit, codenamed Blue Bird, and showed her ID. The special unit is an organization created by the government to combat special nature, so it cannot be known to ordinary citizens. The stranger asked if she could come in. After their director found out that the guy had killed a bloody corpse single-handedly, he asked her to contact him and invite him to their organization. Usually, government structures are very troublesome. Their organization needs extraordinary talents like this guy. He said that, to tell the truth, he wants to join them, but he is still studying and is very focused on his studies. In that case, if he doesn't want to join, they won't force him. But it's a shame the guy doesn't yet know what kind of material benefits their organization provides. The monthly salary is $30,000 without bonuses, about $40,000, $50,000 per month with bonuses, and also free artifacts. That's not all. The most important thing is that when clearing dungeons, all the treasures that he finds will belong only to him. Of course, he can sell them at a price above the market. Before coming to the guy, the girl carefully studied his past. Serrato, who never had a father or mother in his life, survives only thanks to financial assistance. A man with such a clean past, good physical characteristics, other organizations would not be so interested in them. It goes without saying that after the girl said the above, the guy immediately agreed to join them. He asked if they would accept his job application and asked if they needed his fingerprints. The girl asked the guy if he was afraid that he might get involved with some kind of sect, and why he trusted her so much, to which she heard the answer that if she were a member of a sect, she would speak more politely to him. She would just grab him and take him away somewhere. She asked what if she started talking to him like that, and then he would agree and fall into the trap. Michael did not deny the fact that this could happen. In the mortal world there are many burial places and riches. It is natural for a person to become callous when receiving power and money. But his faith is strong and unshakable. He still believes that there is room for light in this darkness. In fact, the guy had already found out about her thanks to something. If he refuses, how can he realize himself? But here a tasty morsel has come into his hands, and a truly extraordinary personality. The girl said that she would then take him to the organization and introduce him to everything he needed to know. There are 1,000 tombs in this world, various treasures, which also have power. If there were no special organization that deals with these matters, then the world would have long since been in chaos and destruction. The guy was taken to the director's office. The man asked the girl to wait outside while he talked to the guy. The director assumed that this guy was that same Michael, and the lines began to appear before his eyes again. Practical skills. Fight. The strongest Jackson. This man is apparently really as strong as many say about him. The man introduced himself and said that he was in charge here and the guy could call him Director Jackson. And at this time only one thought was spinning in my head, that the man was too tall. He said that he heard about his situation in the dungeon, and it was quite impressive. But the guy was modest, and said that he was simply lucky. An ordinary person wouldn't be able to deal with a bloody corpse alone. The man was sure that there was something special about the guy. He really needed such talents. He was looking forward to the same events from him. The guy said that he would try his best, and hoped that the man did not know that he was seeing lines from the future. The man told the guy that the girl would take him further. Among the comments, the guy saw that there would be a major battle, humanity would face something, and a man would give his life for it. The director is not as simple as he seems at first glance. Jackson asked the girl to take him to show him everything here, but the guy only asked the director that he was very strong. No words can convey its power. Currently the boundaries are divided into the following levels. The boundaries of the low, middle, high, and divine level. The director challenged 26 high-level boundaries, by the way. The corpse that the guy dealt with yesterday was of the lowest level. Together with his partner, they entered the cave. The girl took him to some very dark, incomprehensible place. He couldn't understand what they could do. They went down into some basement and the guy was surprised that there was something there. The guy in front of him was slightly surprised. That was not the word, but this is just one of the small warehouses of their organization. The guy immediately began to look at these artifacts like a child in a store, and seemed to be playing with them. 15 minutes later, the girl asked him if he had chosen anything and asked him to hurry up. As soon as he came here, he immediately started watching the reaction of the commentators. Not very excitedly, but everyone is discussing him. And especially these things. They seem to be quite unique. The guy noticed that there was a lot of dust on this display case. Apparently no one had used the items here for a long time. Then he began to explain that these artifacts could be used, but in principle, none of the researchers would even think about it. The girl was surprised that the guy stayed so long to choose the two most useless items. But he was confident in his choice, and would argue that they were useless. Michael needed to use his blood. He hoped this was another truth. But he needed to try to find out for sure. And indeed, this is what happened after the blood got on the artifact. Strange things began to happen to him. And in a split second, 4 huge demons in armor appeared in front of the guy in the room. In the lines, someone wrote that if they drink blood, they will do whatever he wants. After the guy made some movements and the demon actually repeated them, it shattered his new table lamp. After some time, in a very short period of time, the demon simply disappeared from his room. Michael noted that this blood summoning skill is quite powerful and can be useful in many ways. And here the people from the points did not deceive him. This sword cuts through the day with its own knife technique. It turns out that only the one he likes can control the sword. He couldn't understand why these rummaging uncles hadn't said anything about this earlier, so that his apartment wouldn't be damaged. Based on size, all artifacts can be roughly divided into two categories. The first category is tools without any special effects, and the second is a spiritual object possessing supernatural energy. The facts seem to belong to the second category, so it is not surprising that a group of commentators gave preference to these two artifacts. This is the most suitable equipment for him, a beginner who does not have an attacking artifact. The guy opened his eyes and saw himself in some kind of coffin, against the backdrop of a sea of blood. Many zombies began to climb into his coffin, as if trying to grab him and carry him away with them. But the thing is that the guy couldn't understand what was happening. Of course, Michael tried to get out of the door he saw in front of him, but the zombie's arms almost completely grabbed him. Here he woke up from the phone ringing. He was informed that there was an assignment for him. A new dungeon had been discovered a kilometer to the southwest of him, and it was not sealed, meaning the contents could come out at any time. He urgently needed to go there. The difficulty factor of the task was low. He was closest to this dungeon. If something happened, he would have to deal with it. They currently had few free people. Transferring people there would take too much time, so the guy should try to deal with all the corpses himself. The girl turned to the director, although he knew that only 2 tombs had been discovered in this dungeon. But the situation could change at any moment. Wasn't it too risky to send a newbie on this task, especially alone? It's very rare to find a high school student who can handle a bloody corpse. And on top of that, join a special unit to fight them. The principal just wants to make sure that he can really do it, and that he is capable of carrying out a task of this kind. The guy noticed that the further he went, the stronger the smell of rot became. The border must be nearby. He noticed the gate to the tomb. It was a great opportunity to test the Tandao. How lucky he is that there is nothing near this yet. Otherwise he wouldn't have taken anything better. As it turned out, the entrance he found was not the real one, and apparently only after some time did he find the true entrance to the tomb. The main character felt a very strong rotten smell. He definitely came to the right place. This time he has 2 tasks. The first is to find the artifact, and the second is to destroy all the unclean. Here is the first task. 3 zombies attacked the guy. He needed to deal with them first. There were a lot of corpses and treasures here. Obviously, these were all burial items for the owner of this mycelium. The most important thing is that the crypt must be hidden somewhere nearby. This tomb is a little different from those the guy had seen before. There is only one player, and he is very small. In any case, sooner or later he will do something bad, so he will help him not to do anything unnecessary. The boy looked up when something strange dripped on him. He saw the silhouette of some creature in front of him, but he couldn't yet figure out who it was. Apparently he was attacked by a werewolf. Or maybe not, to be honest, even the guy couldn't figure out who it was. Despite this, Michael did not lose his composure and began to fight this werewolf. The werewolf was in an aggressive mood, both very fast and monotonous, but very powerful. Even if its needles lightly hit his stomach, it will definitely hit his organs and he will not survive. The guy decided that the order should deal with this. After these demons appeared, the werewolf immediately found himself in chains. He was attacked from all possible sides in order to make the attacks more effective. If the fight continues like this, he won't have to take part in it. He still has the strength to scream, and this guy is very persistent as it turns out. The guy assumed there wasn't enough blood. Now Michael will have to take matters into his own hands. The main character couldn't even guess what his claws were made of. Despite this, he still managed to cut off one of his arms. The student is sure that all this waste of time is just amusing his friends and commentators. It's time to play seriously. To this end, the guy dealt a powerful blow, thereby splitting the monster into 2 parts. As soon as the guy entered this dungeon, he had the idea to start practicing the secret techniques of wind and water here. And after so much time, he finally found a way to turn off all comments. The guy couldn't understand whether he was an absolute zero and couldn't withstand even such a load. While waiting for the opportunity to practice in the dungeon, he began to memorize all the texts from the book, and now the time had come. Although the energy of this dungeon is not even close to that of a first-class dungeon, at least it is a new dungeon. The energy has not yet dissipated. It will be enough for the guy for dinner. An excited girl ran into the director's office and reported that they had an emergency. Everyone involved in the mission last night returned safely, but nothing has been heard from Michael. The man asked how long it had been since he entered the dungeon. It turned out that 4 hours had already passed. The man suggested waiting another hour, and if nothing changed, they would go to him and check the dungeon. And the guy, of course, continued to meditate on his earth energy. If he understands correctly, then this is a place with sufficient energy, thanks to which one can automatically cultivate energy. The same applies to yin energy. It is cultivated according to the same principle. This practice not only helps to avoid this transmission, but also to develop your skills and pump up your energy, a double benefit. The closed eyes trick seems to work. These lines are right. The werewolf's tomb should contain treasures of a good level. Leaving here empty-handed would be a crime. Usually artifacts are stored with the group owner, but for some reason there is nothing here. The guy picked up the ring and noticed that it looked very familiar. He had clearly seen it somewhere. If his memory serves him right, the director had the same ring on his hand, and this truth can keep things within itself. When I put the ring on, a bright red glow immediately appeared around it. But it really is a useful thing. How can he pass it on to the organization? The guy decided to sort everything out later, and for now he would just take everything. We moved to a place near the dungeon. Of course, sunny places also cultivate energy. When the guy picked up the phone, he heard a loud scream coming from it. The girl was angry and said that 5 hours had already passed. They still hadn't received any news from him. She had already gathered a squad and they were prepared for his death. It goes without saying that the guy wasn't particularly happy to hear that. The girl really didn't think that this guy could handle it at all. While the guy was asleep, he again began to have a very strange dream with snakes. He woke up in his bed and saw in front of him a huge snake, which clearly had not very good intentions. This whole dream ended with this monster eating the guy alive. The main character woke up sweating and seemed to be okay. He realized that it was a bad dream again. Back to school day. The institution began announcing that all students were asked to go to the sports ground for the announcement of exam results. A girl approached the guy and asked what he was doing. After a while, some healthy muscular man grabbed the guy by the scruff of the neck and lifted him up, saying that he had finally found him. Well, the guy was cold-blooded and said that they should put him down first, and then they could talk. Everyone around didn't know what to do. Perhaps the woman wanted to kill him, or perhaps she just wanted to scare him. They couldn't figure out whether they should intervene. But the man's face changed dramatically. He smiled and asked where Michael had been these days, since he had even dropped by his house, to which he heard the answer that he had some business and had been absent for a couple of days. As it turned out, this man, every time he met Michael, behaved as if he was going to kill him. It was a bad habit he had since childhood. This entire conversation was abruptly interrupted by the appearance of something incomprehensible on the field. Most likely it was a mid-level dungeon. Teachers were asked to organize a group of students and immediately leave the area. No one could understand what was happening, because the entrance to the dungeon only opens when the energy reaches its limit. They could not understand why this was happening right now. The main character didn't know what was happening inside the dungeon, but if he went out now, he would act stupidly and many people could get hurt. The guy started telling his friends to run away. This place really does have a strong source of energy, as the commentators said. If he heads there now, people will become suspicious or might get hurt. A girl from the organization called the guy just in time. She informed him that special forces would soon be on site, and that the guy should wait for reinforcements and not go inside. The guy has to go there, because he is in their organization. They don't like cowards and slackers. She asked if he had really given in to the general panic. She also added that this time there was a reward for clearing it. For a dungeon of this class, as far as she knew, the reward was $100,000, which was exactly what he was waiting for. If he comes to the dungeon on the orders of the organization, the commentators will not suspect him of anything. And the girl at that time told the man that the guy was not going to go into the dungeon. Only after hearing that there would be a bonus of $100,000, he moved. She didn't even think that he was such a greedy person. But the machines weren't capable of this, because all people are like that. And besides, the guy is just a student, and that's normal. The man asked what was going on with the task he had assigned to the girl. She found out that the reason for the frequent appearance of dungeons at present is that some anomalies have occurred in the high dungeon. It seems that the seal in the dungeon has weakened. It goes without saying that the teacher didn't like the boy's behavior, and he started calling him back. It was at this time that a special detachment arrived through the organizations. One of them asked not to worry and provide this. They will return the guy. Michael was standing at the entrance to the tomb at that time. The same man approached him from behind. His name was Edison, and he was in command of today's mission. The student also introduced himself and said that he was a new member of the organization. Since I was short on time, Edison decided to quickly run through the names of the others, and the man standing next to me was called Gibson. The young man with long hair was named Robertson, and the man standing next to him was Jack. Gibson asked what this was the guy's first assignment and why he was here empty-handed anyway, but he raised his hand and said that he had this ring. He found it during the last mission in the dungeon. Edison couldn't believe he had found a valuable ring. He was very lucky. Not everyone can hit the jackpot like that on their first mission. Slightly confused, the guy laughed and thanked her. The commander reminded everyone not to forget that they were not allowed to disperse under any circumstances. Robertson wondered why the entrance to the tomb was so long. The commander noticed that there was something in the distance. The gates were completely covered with forests. Some thought it was a trap, and others were surprised that this happened. But Gibson was confident and mocked the others, saying that they hadn't even entered yet, but were already starting to get scared. The guy told the commander that this airflow must be due to the collision of the atmosphere of the energy platform. The man also assumed that this was the reason the gates opened. At such a high concentration, the energy cannot be contained inside, and therefore begins to dissipate at an even greater speed. They had to hold the line. First, they needed to look around. Gibson noted that the people in the frescoes looked very similar to Fuxi and Nuwa from ancient mythology. In front of him, the guy noticed a familiar statue of a snake, which was exactly the same one he had seen in his dream. Suddenly, some snakes with very long tails crawled out from under the ground, but they looked like people. Robertson immediately began asking the commander what they would do, but the chief told him not to panic because the commander had already encountered such people in other mid-level dungeons. These monsters have no material essence. They are just paintings of powder and ink that have come off the walls. They have weak defense. The man even managed to save a guy who was almost killed by one of these snakes. The man said that if nothing was done with the powder on their bodies, they would regenerate. Gibson used some kind of net and threw it straight at the monster. The guy didn't expect them to act so quickly. There was no way to lose. After some time, there were no more enemies left, and the group of people dealt with everyone. And the mid-level dungeons are not as dangerous as they say. The man told everyone not to relax, because these were only low-level monsters, and the danger was still ahead. The man suggested leaving this tomb and looking for others, and if it weren't for the commander's intelligence, they wouldn't have been able to find a way to get rid of the snakes, and they would all have been eaten. The man told them to be careful in this area, as there were mechanisms there. Robertson noticed that there seemed to be another gate ahead. Since everything seems to be fine with everyone, they should hold on and move on. Having reached a certain end, they saw several arcs. They did not know what to do now. Apparently, they would have to split up or choose one road. If they separate, the risk of danger increases. But if they walk together, the man does not know how long it will take them to complete the task. Edison said that they would split up. He had no idea how big this dungeon was. If they spent too much time, it would become much more dangerous here. Gibson was confident that there could be no better solution. And Robertson and Jack had no objections either. Michael had a similar situation. From the very beginning, he was looking for an opportunity to split up with the team to look for the energy source mentioned in the lines. The commander himself suggested it. He cannot miss such an opportunity. The man said that the two guys could easily get confused, so they needed to find a third, calmer person. Although Michael seems like a suitable candidate at first, he is still a child. Gibson told the commander to leave with the two guys, and he would go with the student. This couple, as a rule, reacts very emotionally to everything, so they need a reasonable partner like Gibson, so that nothing happens to them. The guy is still a student. It will be better for him to go with the commander. He must be sure that everyone gets out of here alive. The man asked to listen to the commander. They have known each other for so many years. He knows that they are almost equal in knowledge and strength. But if some kind of conflict arises between these two, he can destroy everything, and he will not be able to cope with them. The teams couldn't understand what the commander was talking about, and the man was being caught. Robertson couldn't understand why it was so difficult to just split up and that's it, and not waste time here. The commander still agreed to let Gibson take the guy with him, but he had one request, to get him out of here safe and sound. The man said that there was no problem with this because he knew him. The guy was surprised that they were discussing everything for so long. By that time, he would have already done everything and gone outside. The two men announced how they would run and in which groups. The boys wondered why it was getting colder and colder here. These were red floating candles, burning time about 3 hours. After receiving these candles, the boys were happy. It turned out the man had a plan. First, he wanted to get rid of the weaklings, and then he would take on the others. Only when he can deal with them and find the source of energy will he be able to save his daughter. The man asked the boy to wait a little. He didn't even think that it would be so windy in the middle-level dungeon. Now he took the yellow seal with him. The guy noticed that he found these yellow seals. It turns out they can be used like this. For a body that has practiced with energy, such cold is not a hindrance. His body simply repels it. He still uses a seal so as not to stand out against the background of Gibson. The man couldn't even imagine that this guy had artifacts that protected against energy. Every time the energy penetrates his body, he feels himself becoming stronger and stronger. The tombs are an ideal place for practice. Each visit feels like a rebirth. The man noticed that there was something in the distance. The guy offered to look. Then they saw a mountain of gold and wealth in front of them. The man has been exploring dungeons for so many years, but he sees so many treasures for the first time. Michael was surprised that there were so many treasures, but not a single rudeness. Was there really not even any protection here? After the man touched the stone, snakes appeared inside, and it caught fire. This clearly did not bode well. Strangely enough, after some time, the snake simply came to life and became aggressive towards its partners. The man told the guy to stand behind him and not stick his head out. Yes, the snake will come at him. He dodged and jumped forward. The confused opening for the attack will not come true, so he will not have a chance to dodge. After the death of the student, he will kill the snake. When he has to tell about the death of the guy, he will come up with a heart-rending story, and they will not even think that he planned it all. Poor boy. Even if he doesn't see the man, he's caught in his clutches. If he wants to do something, no one will stop him. If someone interferes, he must get rid of them. In any case, he will do everything for his daughter. Gibson moved to attack the snake, but his plan came to an abrupt end after the snake began to behave differently. The man could not understand who the guy was and what else he was capable of. Michael couldn't understand how he managed to dodge so quickly. Judging by the comments, the guy had studied all of his weak points. If they continue like this, they won't get rid of him. He needs to find another way. Suddenly, he decided that he and the man needed to run away. It goes without saying that the snake wouldn't leave them alone so easily and began to pursue them. The guy noticed that the man was running so fast that even he couldn't keep up. But the man asked who wouldn't run when they saw such a creature. He had never seen one like that in the dungeons. The guy decided to see how she would dodge now. The commentators were right. The guy won't just die. The man thought he could easily deal with this guy. But after what he saw, all his plans collapsed. Cocaine Studio, she's a real motherfucking beast. Meanwhile, the man and his partners were also dealing with the opponents. He said that they would deal with the remaining two first. Edison couldn't be here and said they were moving on. He hoped that the boy and the man were much luckier than them. If the mask he was holding in his hands really worked like that, he wondered if it could be used against commentators. And if so, he would be able to go to the shower and toilet without any problems. I decided to test the mask on myself, and at that time he approached the man and gave him a juicy bream. But as it turned out, the lubricant didn't work. It doesn't work the way he wanted. After all, the only way to get rid of the lines is to close your eyes. He decided to take this mask with him. Perhaps he would need it again someday. I immediately approached him and asked if he had noticed anything strange, since someone had just hit him. But it goes without saying that the guy didn't say anything to him. After the man suspected that it might be a ghost, the guy laughed and told him not to make things up. Maybe the man was just tired. When they entered another room, the guy was surprised why it was so dark there. There were 12 coffins in the room. They passed the snake, which means a horse is waiting for them now. The man wondered what kind of monster it would be this time. The main character couldn't understand what it meant. The general had to play the flute to give the order to attack. The sound was like a flute. This time there were a lot of opponents. These were some kind of skeletons on horses, which were also skeletons, so to speak. The guy told Gibson to take out his weapon and not let them get close to him, like he did to himself, who took out that very sword. The man noticed that this guy was very strong. He could use him to find what he needed. If this student ended up here, he was not sure that he would get out alive. The man can't let him die yet. And another group of people at this time met a very big bull on the way. Jack was the first to attack, hoping that everything would work out for me and that this battle would not be a very difficult test. But his attempts were unsuccessful. Robertson had a similar situation, but the commander was already able to think rationally and dodged the enemy's attack. While talking to himself, the guy tried to attack the bull's belly. This must be one of his weak points. The man acted smart. He walked around the beast and was ready to strike him straight in the back. Although the bull is large, his weakness is that he is not agile enough. One of the guys will act as bait, and the man and the other will split into two sides and attack the tank in the stomach. After some time, Robertson jumped on his opponent and was ready to strike him. At that time, the boy and the man were also fighting intensely with their opponents back to back. As it turned out, after they defeated all the enemies, they simply had nothing to fight for. The guy noticed that these two soldiers were significantly larger than the others. The sound of the horse did not sound like the sound of an animal. It was similar to the sound of a flute. The guy guessed that this soldier must have a flute. The student said that first they needed to get rid of these soldiers. He asked the man if he could hold out any longer. The man, on the orders of the boy, went to fight one of the ghost soldiers. The man's expression changed dramatically. The guy reacted in time and put down his umbrella to slow down time and prevent the man from dying. He immediately ran to the man and asked him if everything was okay. I handed him a pill and told him to rest for a while, and the guy in due time began to fight with all opponents. It felt like the guy didn't see any problem in fighting his opponents. He used all the knowledge and techniques he knew to easily defeat them. And in the end, the man realized that this guy's strength was much greater than his. Michael didn't know if it would always work on other bones. After the guy defeated all the opponents, he approached the man a second time and asked if he felt better. The man no longer knew how to kill the guy. If it weren't for him, the man would have been in the grave long ago, considering that he saved him again. He's not sure if he can beat him at all, even if he wants to, that's the problem. But if he doesn't, his daughter will be dead. On one hand, the guy is his savior. On the other hand, his daughter. He didn't know what to do. After the man began to apologize to the guy, he began to say that everything was fine, and without his help he would not have been able to kill the monsters. The man began to explain that he was apologizing for the wrong reason, because someone had made a deal with him to kill him. He has a daughter. She just recently turned 6 years old. She was very weak and sick since childhood. She could not go to school, and he always took care of her. 2 days ago, when he returned home, he brought her her favorite cake. But his daughter did not greet him as usual. She was seriously poisoned and lay motionless on the floor of the room. He immediately ran up to her and started asking what had happened to her. A man found a note under his daughter's body. It said that he must kill everyone in this dungeon, then get an item from the tomb called a yin energy source, and give him the bodies, and in exchange she will give him an antidote. After the girl's mother passed away, he was left with only a beautiful daughter, and if he couldn't save her, he wouldn't be able to continue living. He followed the instructions in this note and voluntarily applied to participate in this building. He wanted to get rid of the guy first, then the rest, and find this source of yin in the snake tombs. He deliberately lured the snake to attack him, but he unexpectedly saved the man. It is understandable why the commander decided to create a team with such an unknown person like him, but this was the reason. If what he said about the task turns out to be true, then he will be able to understand it, but the next step should be taken without precaution. Moreover, he knows about the energy source. The guy began to explain so that the man would not be so surprised. He was sure that he just wanted to save his daughter. Besides, it was he who recently slapped him, so he thinks they are even. The guy just couldn't understand how that person knew in advance that they would appear here. How he knew so much about the energy source, when even his brother couldn't figure it out for 10 years, why he needed this source. The man couldn't understand why there was no group in this room. Is it really just this weird statue with a sheep's head here? The guy was sure that it wasn't that simple. As it turns out, this sheep is the most difficult to deal with. When the commander's group entered the room, they saw a live lion in front of them. Until now, no monsters had attacked that were unable to use their maximum at all. The energy in the tomb had not yet completely broken through the demon seal. The man is worried about something. Once the energy completely breaks through the seal, these monsters will no longer be able to be stopped. It was because of this that he ordered everyone to split into teams. They can't give up, so they have to take action. The statue came to life. They could not imagine what it wanted from them. After using the new one once, it needs to last 2 inches. It will cool down for half an hour, so if his strike is not unexpected, he will lose 2 chances to strike. The statue is already fully standing on its feet. The guy asked the man to be careful. The student barely managed to react to the monster's attack and somehow dodged it. The monster dealt another powerful blow to the guy. His patience snapped and he decided to call on the demons for help. And the monster did not give up trying to destroy the guy. Well, the blood from the guy's finger wasn't enough to summon all the demons. This monster was already driving the guy crazy. This is what he thinks should definitely be captured. And now it's the student's turn. He easily defeated the enemy, and immediately ran up to the man and began to bring him to his senses. But he could not get out of this state. The guy was glad that the man at least got there. The main character asked the man to wait a little. He takes him to a safer place. The guy realized that things were bad. Something exploded right next to them, or came out of the ground. It's very cloudy, but this place will collapse at any moment, so there's nothing he can do. At this time, the commander was still able to overcome the tiger. Robertson was glad because they were finally done with this. He was already starting to think that he would meet his ancestors. After the coffin began to move, the partners immediately began to examine what might be inside. Entering the coffin, they were able to find a guy with a man. Gibson told the captain that he had rested and could go on, but was simply worried about his daughter. After walking a few meters, the man ordered everyone to stand and raised his hand up. He said that they won't be coming out to the ancients anytime soon, so they need to get in shape and prepare. Some kind of red-violet glow began to erupt from underground. The guy noticed that the energy here is at least 3 times thicker than outside. They should be strong, but their eyes say that they are weak, and they will not be able to take this lightly. But if they, like the guy, are able to absorb energy to strengthen their powers, then they need to be dealt with as soon as possible. Otherwise, they will have serious problems. Just at that moment, a healthy hare jumped out at them. The commander began to fight with the huge monkey that attacked him. This battle was in the man's favor. At this time, the boy and the man were enjoying the fact that they were able to defeat this huge rabbit. The student said that he was tired of talking and suggested that he just watch. Since it was too dark, the guy couldn't see anything. At this time, they were surrounded by some very evil and secret energy. Michael and Edison walked back to back. The guy noticed that something strange was happening. Stones were falling right on his head. Raising his head above himself, he saw some kind of dragon. And it really was a dragon that was very maliciously set against them. And it is clear that everyone present did not expect to see an enemy in the form of a dragon. The creature began to attack. The first person he set his sights on was Jack, who was clearly unlucky enough to be a target. The dragon easily knocked back the two guys thanks to its tail. Robertson immediately flew into the wall, after which he grabbed the commander. The commander told the others to run and look for a place to hide. The dragon pinned the man to the floor. This is impossible. The dragon is so fast that they can't escape at all. If this continues, they will all be here for you. There is no time to think. Something needs to be done quickly. The guy took on the role of leader and gave instructions to everyone. He will find a way to detain him, but it is better to hurry. The dragon is very big. It will be easy to hit it on the head. The captain was also unconscious, same as Robertson. Tears immediately came to Jack's eyes when he saw the state his friend was in. Jack told him that he couldn't just leave him like that. The guy at this time maneuverably dodged the dragon's attacks. After some time, he was already on par with the dragon. The dragon threw the guy back several meters. Michael saw Jack put some kind of deck right into the monster's mouth. He told the student to kill him quickly. Robertson's sacrifice must not be in vain. The guy was thinking about how he would fight the dragon. He took out his swords again and used its ability. The student swung with incredible force to deliver the fatal blow. And just a split second later, this blow occurred. The deck that the guy brought struck him at the moment when Michael attacked the dragon. Naturally, the protagonist immediately approached the guy and asked if everything was okay. It's no big deal compared to Robert, it's just a scratch. The guy was also badly hurt. Gibson asked his partners how they were. The man noticed a passage directly to the grave, but they couldn't believe that they weren't finished with the Zodiac demons yet. And the guy looked at all this with cold blood and thoughtfully, and thought about what he should do now. In connection with the task, the guy and his partner came to the dungeon in search of artifacts and treasures.